5,000 less than the target. Decrease is, this is the cycle where city and schools are not on, so we don't get that reimbursement for the elections. We will be reimbursed for the city election coming up on March 19th. That's a direct reimbursement from the city for the special election. So we will have that. That's not part of this, but just so you know, cities and schools will reimburse the cost of the election. Anytime there's a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian on the ballot, that is not reimbursable by the state, federal, or we pay it all. So we did go out to DC and ask for the some funding as a group. I don't think it was an overly successful, but we look at the ballot space as real estate. The ones that have the best real estate are paying zero. That would be the federal government, followed by the state, followed by the county. So we are looking for creative ways to have either cybersecurity at the federal level or more funding at the federal level for it come down to the county. So that's one of the things we've done in the last week or two. The expense decreases, personal services like everyone else, that's the big expense. The presidential election increases, that's pretty standard. And then the elimination of the voting machine purchase. We have RFPs that we're reading right now that should be coming to fruition either right before the primary or right after the primary election with the new updated equipment. Some of our accomplishments are, we did a lot of the tracking of the ARPA funds, including finding some dead money, stuff that we could actually go back and get reimbursed for losses for the county. We've worked with your staff, general services, behavioral services, the Polk County Attorney to look at the housings that we have through the behavioral groups that we've taken over. We conducted the 2023 election, really an easy, simple election. Some people liked the results, some people didn't, but that's just part of the game. And then there's a number of changes with House File 718, the property tax. We've talked about that ad nauseum on how it affects everybody, but we are working to get the stuff we need to do, including mailing the tax statements to every individual voter, every individual taxpayer within 5 days after certification. So we're starting to reach out to the cities and schools, asking them if they can certify early to give us that opportunity, because as you know, finding 200,000 documents and trying to combine all those and get them out in 5 days is going to be a pretty heavy lift. And then we also had the election for the bond issue, which we talked about earlier. It was very successful. Some upcoming things we're looking at is we're going to conclude the RFP. They're all in right now. So we're looking at those. We'll have vendors in our office next couple weeks to talk about their plans. We're going to install a new alarm system. One of the things we keep hearing nationwide is there's a lot of threats into election officials, whether it's poll workers or other candidates. We want to make sure that these ballots are safe and secure. So with the help of General Services, we are installing a new alarm system. So that should be done pretty soon. And, unfortunately, sometimes good people want to retire. I'm not going to say which one of my staff, Becky, but we need to train a side-by-side clerk. It's a lot more than just coming here, and I rely on Becky a lot. So I appreciate anything we can do to help move that along.
So do we.
Appreciate that. And then long-term, these elections are getting bigger and bigger. People are starting to not trust the mail. So we're getting more and more people coming to our office. There's been law changes where I can't set up satellite voting like I used to. So at some point, we're going to need to get serious about getting that 120 into have more people being able to participate in a quicker manner. It's never a problem in June, for the primaries. It's always cold in November, and it seems to always rain. So when there's lines, you see that. So we're going to be looking at that in the future. That's more of a long-term thing, but that's just something to put on your radar. We do a great job. We used to actually go out and rent places to do our poll worker training. We do that all internal now with the changes on second floor, so we're able to bring all our poll workers in, train them through about 30 different classes. So we're trying to be more self-sufficient, self-contained. That's where the new security system will also help a great deal. So with that, I'll turn it over to John.
Jamie, I had a question before we turn it over.
Sure.
So what were you saying in terms of 120?
120 is our election office.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to move some of the offices, including mine, to a different floor to allow a better flow for the voters. You know,
Okay.
right now, there's one door you can come in. It's not exactly the most accessible door. So we had engineers come through, we met with general services. We just weren't ready to pull the trigger for this election. We have enough balls in the air, but at some point, we're gonna try to get it where voters can come in, seamlessly vote, and get out as soon as they possibly can. Right now, we've moved the front counter about 5 different times in the last 10, 15 years. So we're trying to get where it's a little more easy for the voter, and on those days it rains and snows, that we can get them in and out.
Do you have an estimate on that?
I do not.
Have you ever considered moving?
We have considered moving. We've talked about it. We just don't seem to ever find a location that will allow for ease of access for our poll workers and our voters, because we do bring the supplies back every night. So anywhere we'd go would have to be something on a main road. A bus route would be great. So if you guys are looking at moving us, I'd definitely be part of that conversation.
Jamie, refresh my memory on the satellite voting. Can we do that anymore at all, or how's that?
Satellite voting has to be asked for by citizens. It needs 100 signatures. It's 100 signatures no matter the county. So in some counties, it's about 2% of their population. In Polk County, it's, minuscule amount. But the parties, individuals will ask for a polling site, has to meet all the qualifications, and we decide the dates. It's a little different because in the old days, we do a couple weeks of early voting. Now, having it be choppy is making it a little more difficult because you can't bring the parties in and say, here's where we're going to do our locations, here's when we're going to do them. If you have a better idea, let us know. Now we're having, a lot of different people in there and not working with each other on those. So it'll be a little bit bigger this year.
Right, thanks.
I mean, there is a lot of empty office spaces downtown.
So probably the federal building is probably too big.
We'll accept immediately.
Federal building's too big, but there's a lot of spots downtown. I don't know. We'll have to think about that. Jamie?
Perfect.
Okay. County recommendation?
Oh, yeah, I just add that, I think, it was just last week I signed off on some, not high cost, I think it was like $13,000 of security
Correct.
changes at the election office. A different door, I believe some cameras were involved.
Yes.
And, I forget what else was moved, but to address the break-in we had last fall.
Yeah.
Will you have a panic alarm?
I believe we're in the process of getting one.
Okay.
We have, a lot of your security comes over throughout the day, checks in on us. During the election time, we'll probably ask for a dedicated person there to help diffuse anything that could possibly come up.
All right. You do a great job, Jamie.
Thank you. Good.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to Polk County.
Thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm Amanda Marino. I'm the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner. Been here a little over a year now.
Can you pull that microphone just a little bit closer to you? There you go.
And this is Dr. Blitman, who's our new Chief Medical Examiner, forensic pathologist that we recently recruited. So, can go ahead with our first. Oh, we're doing
I told Amanda and Joe you'd be easy on them because they've never seen one of these before, so.
Yeah,
It's, yeah.
So-
They're pretty tame usually.
no problem.
Okay.
Take your time.
So estimated revenue for this year, $467,000. Request expense, $3,786,000. And we have 16.9. Not sure what happened to the .1 of our full-time employees. And it looks like budget was on target. Losses this year, we eliminated doing the blood draws for the jail, and that is where that comes from. So we lost about $24,000 in that deal. Expense increase compared to our current budget is $182,000, and that's basically all in personal services for wages, increases, and their benefits. We've had a eventful last year. We completed 2,128 death investigations, certified 900 of those Polk County deaths, signed 3,377 cremation permits. We are now fully staffed with full complement of investigators, and we have 2 lead investigators. So we are now fully staffed, along with our wonderful find here in Dr. Blitman. So for our new chief ME, so pretty excited about that. We've obviously resumed doing autopsies at the rate which we are allowed. We're looking to complete about 300 autopsies through our office this year. The remainder of what is left will go to the state.
Is that a normal amount?
So we are limited by NAME guidelines, which is our accrediting body. So they recommend 250, and there's a hard stop at 325. We get a
Okay.
violation beyond that. We've been working hard we've got lots of people on board in the office working on making office paperless, which has been, it was all paper about a year ago. And we're about 90% of the way there. So that's been a big accomplishment for us, and it's brought a lot better organization, I think. We've had 4 of our staff attend national conferences. So they're out there networking for us, they're talking to their people. And 2 of our investigators have received their death investigation certificates, their certifications. And with a full staff of investigators, our 2 leads, and Dr. Blitman, we have been able to resume most of our community outreach that we were doing previously. We have a few things in the works with just some collaborative projects with Des Moines PD, Emergency Management, Iowa Donor Network, and Dr. Blitman and the leads they've gone back to attending the trauma reviews at local hospitals, which is much appreciated on their parts. They're happy to see us. So, upcoming opportunities and considerations. There's kind of been a nebulous discussion about building a new morgue and some new office space. I think there's a lot of slow-moving pieces there. So we are still, I think, aiming for that at some point.
So are we.
Okay, so yeah, and it's just, like I said, a matter of kind of a lot of slow-moving pieces there. We're continuing to recruit for another forensic pathologist, and that is probably going to take some time. The market is tight, and there's a real shortage. So I think we just had discussions with the recruiter for that, and they're going to be hitting the pavement with that pretty soon, but it's probably going to be a pretty long process. Yep, and I think I touched on a little bit before, but we're expanding our outreach. Also, we're visiting with local EMS, hospitals, residency programs, community physicians, just kind of going out and doing some community education on who we are and what we do. So our leads are out there kind of hitting the pavement and talking to staff at a bunch of places, and we're looking at trying to expand that. So we're looking at trying to kind of pull everybody together, and it's coming together. So I think it'll expand nicely in the next year to two. And then we are currently in the process of reviewing and reorganizing the medical examiner's role in mass casualty and mass fatality planning. And we have a disaster trailer that is sitting out back that we haven't done a lot with. And so we're gonna be working with emergency management on that and kind of bringing that up to date and up to speed, and that'll go hand in hand with our kind of updated mass casualty event planning. So it's the end of my spiel.
I don't have any questions for you. I think this is always a little bit of a moving target here because of, we're obviously, how do you plan for how many deaths and how much will go to the state medical examiner to do once we are overloaded at the county. So right now, it's kind of a wash between adding another assistant medical examiner, forensic pathologist, and what we're spending or paying the state to do them. So that's why we continue to work to find another forensic pathologist to assist Dr. Blitman, and so we keep the autopsies local, serve the local community. But it's I think Deb may know more, but it's about a wash, I think. So it's a little hard to plan.
Well, for me, and I'm only speaking for myself, but I'm sure I hold the sentiment with the rest of the board. We're thrilled that you're here. And I know you're doing a great job, so we really appreciate that. And we'll give you any support that you need, just ask. And I want to move forward sooner than later on our morgue. I'm not waiting for what the state's deciding or, you know, what we have out in the wind on the other building or any of that. I think it's time that we move on that. They've waited long enough on office, and all that situation needs to be handled. I'm hoping all the death investigators and everybody can work collaboratively together sooner than later. I know you and Jeff have been out there numerous times, but we have a wonderful medical examiner and we want to keep him. So we will do whatever it takes to keep you. And so just ask whatever you need, please. I hope you like Iowa. We're having spring, by the way, in January, and that does never happen. So you're lucky. So thank you.
John, I had a question for you. And I talked to Dr. Blitman about this last week. It's kind of early in his career to know the answers to some of this stuff, but are we doing anything, is anything going on with the state? We had a lot of things going on with Dr. Blitman's predecessor in terms of, you know, maybe moving up there and using their morgue, expanding and so forth and so on. Is that all dead in water, or what's going on with that?
It's been a bit of a moving target with the state. Even a year or two ago, we approached them about partnering on the expansion of their current space.
Right.
They weren't interested in us having our own facility within theirs. They wanted us to be part of their expansion, but then take over our medical examiner's operation. So we never reached any agreement there. We've explored Des Moines University as potential space for our medical examiner's office, and there's a huge facility there that I know Des Moines University was interested in see if the state would be interested in moving their facility there. Now we've learned that they have a proposal in the governor's budget for $36 million to expand their Ankeny facility, which I'm floored by because it was kind of built for expansion. I haven't seen the architectural drawings or the plans for it yet, but it is, yeah, it's been hard to make any progress on joint space, which I thought at the time, I still do, makes a lot of sense, either there or at Des Moines University, so we could share equipment, share storage, cold storage space, but we haven't made any headway.
Right, I have to agree with Angela on this one, that I don't understand why a county of 500,000 people would not have a medical examiner, the state would do all of it. It makes no sense to me. We need to have a medical examiner here in a full office and everything here. And it's not a county of 4,000 people, it's a county of 500,000 people. So I think we need to have a dedicated medical examiner in a medical examiner's office. So if the, quid pro quo is to, fold our operation into theirs, that's not, I don't think that worked for our community very well.
Yeah, as you know, when we started examining this, we had meetings with law enforcement, with the
Funeral
home-
directors.
funeral home providers, and it was huge pushback.
Yeah, nothing against the state's program at all, but I just don't think it makes any sense
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
I agree with Angela. We need a state-of-the-art morgue. We need modern office space. We've been talking about this upgrade, how long? A number of years now. We need to get it done.
Yeah, and what we kind of put us on hold was hoping we could collaborate. And
Right.
I think it probably made more economic sense for us and the state to have some joint space or adjoining space. But unless that
It's not gonna happen.
doesn't look like it's gonna happen, so we probably need to finally, close that chapter and move on to our own.
And we have a design of some sort sitting somewhere, I think.
Well, that was for 19th and Carpenter.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We moved past 19th. Okay, we gotta find a new
But we have
spot.
other options, though.
Yeah, we have other options.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're gonna start on that.
Fantastic, thank you.
Hopefully, it's gonna become a reality.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're gonna get the money, but that's the girl behind you's problem to find out.
We still have some earmarked.
Okay, perfect. All righty then. Well, thank you very much. Any other questions for them? No? Okay,
Thanks,
Thank
Doctor.
you.
thank you.
Okay. So for the Board of Supervisors budget, we have an estimated revenue of about 257 million. The majority of that is property tax revenue, and there's also some bond proceeds included in that. On the expense side, about 83.9 million. The majority of that is debt service expense. It also includes community development grants, community betterment grants, and economic development initiatives. We have 19 FTEs, and our budget request is right on target. For the revenues, we see a projected increase of 3.7 million in revenues, and most of that is coming from property taxes due to an increase in the valuation. I broke out for you the general basic fund. So we saw an 8.1% increase in our taxable valuations that would have generated about 9.5 million in new property tax revenues, purely based on the constant levy rate applied to that increased valuation. Due to House File 718, we needed to roll that back. Instead of 8.1% increase, we needed to levy an amount that would generate 3 percentage points less in valuation growth. So what would our levy rate need to be in order to only have a 5.1% increase in taxable valuation? We have to adjust the levy rate in order to achieve that. So we go from $3.50 to $3.40 as our new general basic levy rate cap. And that cap carries forward from year to year. Or that is the new cap, and then next year we'll need to reduce it again. This is where the problem comes in, House File 17 over time. Also we are continuing to phase out the commercial and industrial replacement. That was over a 5-year period. This is year 4, so $630,000 coming off the general basic fund. Next year, that same amount will come off, and then after that, we'll be receiving 0 in commercial and industrial replacement rollback.
Wow.
So in total for next year in the general basic fund, about 5.7 million in property tax increase due to the adjusted valuation and a $3.40 levy rate. That's fine for the upcoming fiscal year. It approximates the total cost in personal services increase. And there are other funds, which would be the general supplemental, the rural funds, the debt service fund. we see an increase of about 16.9 million due to increase in valuation and also incorporating the rate changes. The rural basic also has that same effect from House File 718. So that gets rolled back from $3.95 to $3.84. So that we'll be seeing the same thing happening in the rural basic fund, but we're okay in there for now. Also, we will be scaling back the amount of bond proceeds that we'll be receiving. So we're estimating that in the current fiscal year, in a couple months, we're going to be issuing bonds for about 2 years' worth of housing projects and capital improvement projects. In the upcoming fiscal year, we'll be doing just one because we'll have caught up. So it reduces the amount of bond proceeds we'll be having coming in next fiscal year as compared to this fiscal year. Also, the Metro Waste Authority, we had issued debt for them a while ago. One of those series retires. They were reimbursing us their share. That was $2 million, so that comes off next year as well. I did have in this year's budget about $2 million reimbursement from FEMA for COVID. That's simply just the time lag in receiving reimbursement for COVID. Then also next year, incorporating the deferred economic development loan repayments for Genesis and the YMCA would reduce the revenue in that fund. On the expense side, we see about $70 million decrease. There's some really big ticket items here. Emergency rent assistance is in this year's budget for $56 million to pass through that federal funding. That would not occur next fiscal year. Same thing with the ARPA lost revenue replacement projects. I've budgeted for this fiscal year. We'll complete all those projects that we had designated for lost revenue replacement, and that would not continue into 24-25. Economic development projects and CBG carryovers. The big one here is the remainder of the initial $15 million that the board had approved for Broadway. So far, we've expended $11 million, so there's $4 million in the current budget that I would not budget going forward. And then the resource center construction was budgeted for $5 million. We anticipate that would be complete in this fiscal year and not carry forward to 24-25. Debt service, there's a large increase there. As I mentioned, in a couple months, we'll be issuing bonds for 2 years worth of housing and capital improvement projects. We'll be paying those off next fiscal year. And then, as everyone else has seen, the base wage step merit increases, personal service expense increase of $164,000, and then some miscellaneous adjustments of about negative $222,000.
And then when you're talking about housing, are you talking about our allocation, does this include our allocation to Oakland Housing Trust Fund, NFC?
It does.
And so forth?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It does.
Okay, I think most of you are familiar with most of the items on this list, so I'll run through this really quickly when it comes to our recent accomplishments. Welcome Center and Sobering Center. I believe you're all aware that we've come to a consensus on a new name for that building, Polk County Life Services Center. It'll house the Welcome Center, which we're calling Global Neighbors, and obviously the Sobering Center, Crisis Observation, and Broadlawn Psychiatric Urgent Care. So we expect that to come online this year. Healthcare Workforce Collaborative is the initiative we've been working on with DMU with the remaining $5 million of ARPA funding that we've set aside to create a regional simulation center and some shared recruiting and shared retention strategies. Right now, DMU is assessing all of the needs assessments that our partners provided to us to see what exactly that space needs to look for. Cherry Street parking lot, we took ownership of that, and I've got a draft RFP ready to go to local developers. It's being reviewed right now by various stakeholders, hoping to get that on the market for redevelopment probably this spring. You're all aware of grant and sponsorship program changes, aligning some different deadlines, tightening up the sponsorship request process, so consolidating that to align with CBG grants in December, January, February, and then CDGs in July and August. So that has been going good so far with a couple tweaks here and there. CDBG funds, we received about $700,000. Sean Bagnowski was critical in getting that, so we'll be working to determine where we're going to apply those funds in the next year. John, anything you want to say about Climate Action Team?
Yeah, so the Climate Action Team, we'll get our consultant and the plan back. they're in final stages right now. So I would guess within 30 days, we'll probably have that plan back. We included in what we've done so far, our estimates on solar on all of our buildings, which ones would accommodate, which will work, cost estimates of it, structural estimates. We are kind of waiting on federal regulations on grant money before we pull the trigger on those to make sure those that might be eligible for grant money, we don't want to get out in front of that and start putting them in before we know if there's potential grant money. Other things like MPO still working with the charging stations, the grant money for that we propose to put charging stations in a number of our facilities. We've done energy efficiency studies. Some of them already have been installed, more to be installed. In the budget for general services is a new HVAC system for this building, which will take this building off of natural gas, which is a great way to improve reductions in emissions. All this was based on an inventory of our greenhouse gas emissions and what we targeted to make the biggest impact to get that moving forward. The plan that comes from the Palewood folks will help us chart the next 10 years. We have currently just 3 EVs in the General Services Department, but Rich is here and Polk County Conservation has got more experience with EVs as we continue to try and convert the fleet there. This is a much more, I mean, they're still hard to get, but manufacturing of electric vehicles is ramping up rapidly. This is the perfect place for EVs. You know, I mean, you're not going to jump in a county car and drive to Denver and have range fear. The charge you get on EVs it works very well for municipal and county governments because you can use the vehicle all day and have 0 emissions and not have to worry about range fear on your vehicles. So those are just a few highlights what we've done so far with the climate action team.
We completed our ARPA investments. There's only a handful of projects out there, construction projects with Irely Ball and Child Serve, I believe, that have not had their money issued to them, as well as the $5 million for the DMU. So mostly it's just maintenance reporting now that I work with Central Accounting to make sure our quarterly and yearly reports get done for that. We spoke about medical examiner already. Upcoming opportunities and considerations, I mentioned the Cherry Street parking development. Again, RFP is ready to go out to stakeholders, hopefully this spring, to put that on the market and get some really great ideas going. I had already gotten some input from folks on kind of visioning and what would be a good use of that space. We also solved the problem on moving our parking folks into the ramp, so I'll finalize some of that with the city this spring when we're ready to issue the RFP as well. Homeless families in the ERA 2 money, you approved a position today, a temporary position, which will be Doug Romig, who is working right now to help put together some guidelines and visioning on how we can use the development piece of the ERA 2 money to address homeless families in Polk County. I think the concept we're exploring is a replication of single-family homes and what we're doing with behavioral health and disability services homes. So Doug will be making sure that we implement that within all the guidelines of the ERA. We can cross level 4 pretrial off this list. That was put on there several weeks ago. Sexual assault prevention, I continue to convene groups of stakeholders, including CFYS, County Attorney, Health Department, downtown neighbors, Des Moines Police Department on putting together a sexual assault prevention program specific for the Court Avenue District. That came out of the recommendations for the RHI study. Again, opening of Welcome Center and Sobering Center. And then our long-term opportunities are just the budget implications from some of the state legislation and kind of what budgeting looks like going forward. I'd like to convene some conversation once we get the Welcome Center and Sobering Center open, convene some conversation with community members, stakeholders, economic development folks about that entire corner on Carpenter. There's about 4 vacant buildings within eyesight of the Health Department and Welcome Center. So what can we do as a community to make that a more vibrant area, and then whatever's left on the climate action team.
The only thing I'd add that I didn't cover before is the climate pollution reduction grant money that we received for the metropolitan statistical area that Allison is running. There's a first phase application that's due, I believe, in the next 6 weeks or so. And we just are sending a letter today of our intent to apply for funds in the phase 2. We have to give notice of the EPA of what we're going to go after. And we've targeted the level of, I think it's between $10 and $50 million that the plans, the climate pollution reduction group and all the 6 counties in our MSA, and we also brought in Story County that are pursuing grant money for, it'll be largely targeted to low-income residential for reducing their energy usage and cost. So that we'll probably know late this summer. Word from the EPA is they want the money out the door by October. And so that's what we're shooting for in terms of federal grant money through the climate pollution reduction grant program.
Okay. You're up.
I recommend everything we recommended.
What's with the admin?
Oh, yeah, I should explain that. Put that back up. Put that back up. We had discussion of this with the sheriff's budget and with the emergency management budget. And this is the whole issue of radio connectivity in the schools. We have a meeting set up, I believe, to emergency management.
With who? Where's the man?
Emergency
Okay.
management, to get them engaged with the assessments of the schools so they can find out what is really out there, how widespread it is across the county. And then once we have that intel and some planning from the sheriff's office and emergency management, we just earmark this to set aside. So if we want to do some kind of matching grant program with the schools, when there's new analysis, all the state has it.
They haven't issued all their money.
Huh?
They haven't issued all their money yet,
They're
the
sitting
state.
on- They're sitting on the money.
Yeah, for specifically the school.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, this is an issue that needs to be addressed, but there's a lot of moving parts right yet, and I don't know if we'll move that forward now. We're gonna set this aside for now. The state's doing what we need to do is,
But this program is just for the schools where we have contracts with SROs, right? The Dallas Center Grimes, North Polk, and so forth, right, Kevin?
well, I don't know.
It's not Valley and Roosevelt and people like that. I mean, those are different jurisdictions.
That's my understanding, just gonna be the school districts where we provided law enforcement services or have an SRO.
And it's just
Sheriff's office.
And it's just high schools too, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's up to you, once we learn more about this, how much you want to provide, what's the approach, and what the state's.
I think the schools have to request it from the state, don't they?
What's that, Bob?
The schools have to request it from the state, I think. The state has to,
Yes.
yeah, they have to dole it out.
All I know is what I just read in that article.
Right.
Yes.
So my guess is the schools don't want to take responsibility for having to maintain it, so forth and so on, probably something like that going on, because why would you turn it down? But there's gotta be some more to the story than just state sitting on money.
I think the idea behind the grant program was to provide $50,000 per building. And the problem they've had with getting the money out, because I asked, they said that the problem is they're waiting, because it's federal money under ARPA, they're waiting to figure out how to handle the federal filing requirements, because the schools want it. And most of them have a plan to use that 50,000 by putting internal locks on the doors, is what I understand is gonna be like one of the big items, and then there's some silent alarms and things like that, but yeah, they're trying to get through whatever regulatory hurdles they have from the federal government on how they can spend the money, but I think 50,000 per building will go fast.
Yeah,
If they just do locks on every internal door so that,
That's not very much.
that's not very much, 50,000 per building when you think about the whole state.
We do have to have a collaborative approach with the school districts, though, I think, and participation from what, if it is in fact the school districts we talked about where we have an SRO, we have law enforcement contracts, Bob mentioned a few, we need to have those discussions to sort that all out.
Yeah, my sense is between the emergency management, the sheriff's office, help schools become aware of their situation.
Do the assessments.
Each building's different.
They're the decider, and they're the final decision what they want in their school. And that's when we would be able to design some
Okay.
type of matching grant. So they got some skin in it, we've got some
All right,
investment in it.
sounds good?
Okay, is there anything else? Ralph, you got some?
Sexual assault prevention, does that include SART? It just been. Okay, is that, I've just gotten phone calls from prior supervisors, prior county attorneys, worried that that was kind of falling off, those nurse practitioners, those investigators were maybe not as readily available.
Right. Yeah, I think that's I don't think there's any danger of it going away or anything. The issue was they couldn't get nurses to respond, especially in the fourth quarter of last year, and we got pay and so forth, and then the hospitals, there was a dispute between how much they should pay and so forth, and we got that all ironed out. There's other proposals out there, though, that are interesting and may be viable. Joy Eiley and I are kind of working on that a little bit, and let you know how that comes out, but nothing's gonna go away.
As Sarah said, this is a campaign for people to understand when they go to these bars, what they should be looking for. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.